Part 17. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 161. Su Ming spent the whole night in the room thinking. It's not that there is no solution. This case is not a big case in essence. It's not illegal, but it's not illegal. The key issue here is moral judgment. The law is a criterion and a benchmark. No one has ever said that morality is a criterion. Morality is different in terms of position and identity, and sometimes it's just nonsense. So the key to this matter is how to express. Different statements have different effects, and different directions will lead to completely different results. So the next morning, Su Ming called Director Song. "Director, this is what I think. Since it has become a fact, it is actually meaningless to pursue responsibility. Besides, strictly speaking, no one is responsible, except for the student who withheld the animals. This matter is not a big responsibility. If it is really exposed, the two little people, Laolin and Xiaolin, will be the ones who will take the blame in the end. I have talked about this with Lao Wang. Lao Wang's idea is basically the same as yours. Changping County is a subordinate county of Jiangjin City. Although Jiangjin City and our Yangchuan City don't get along well, they are colleagues after all, and they have their own difficulties. We were kind enough to help rescue the animals. If it is reported, it will bring trouble to the other party's work, Director Song said. But this matter can't just end like this, don't you think so? Su Ming smiled slyly. Old Wang said that he would bring this up with the Jiangjin City authorities. These dogs were originally their responsibility. Now that we are accepting them, it will definitely cost us some money. Yes, you understand me, leader, Su Ming laughed. I knew you were taking advantage of the situation. Dean Song also laughed, then turned serious and asked, what are you going to do with those dogs? If we bring them back to raise them, the zoo won't have enough space. That's what I think. Su Ming told his thoughts to Director Song. That afternoon, Wang Jianxi called the Jiangjin City authorities and sent the video footage that Su Ming had obtained. Then the two sides held meetings and discussed until the evening, and finally arranged the rest. Nangongyan also received direct instructions from the head of the TV station, indicating how Nangongyan should handle the subsequent news reports. The content of the report was still the same, but the angle of the report was very different. It's good to handle it this way, but will someone say that we are confusing right and wrong? Nangongyan asked Su Ming with some doubts. What is black and what is white? Su Ming rolled his dark eyes and said, if you offend the whole world, you are white. Big sister, as a person, you can't always think that the whole world is drunk and I am the only one who is sober. This way of handling can not only solve the problem but also maximize the benefits. What's wrong? If you just follow your previous thoughts and expose the truth of the matter, it will be refreshing, but it will not have any effect except venting your anger. Insisting on exposing it will not only be useless in the end, but will affect the work of the two places and cause social instability. Who will benefit in the end? The honest people will suffer. Besides, we report it like this, and we are telling the truth, and we are not making it up. Why do I feel that everything you say immediately makes sense? Nangongyan said. That's because it makes sense, Su Ming laughed. Okay, I'll go back and prepare the press release. Old Lin, these dogs will be kept here for a while, but not too long. I've already arranged the rest. Just one dog, don't sell it anymore, Su Ming said hello to Old Lin before leaving. Don't worry, I won't dare to say anything. But you have to hurry up, I can't afford to keep them for a few days. And you said you want to find a doctor for these dogs, treat them, disinfect them, etc. Where can you get so much money? It's okay, if you don't have money, ask Chairman Peng for it. Su Ming patted Peng Lin on the shoulder. Little Peng, you must have made tens of thousands of dollars in college, give some back to society. Penguin wanted to die. How long has he been the president of the student union? Less than a year, and he has only been managing the laboratory for a year. All in all, the money he withheld for animal euthanasia drugs is less than 4,000 yuan. Where did the so-called tens of thousands of dollars come from? But Su Ming had warned him that if he didn't bleed this time, the video of him withholding the funds for the euthanasia of the experimental subjects would be spread online. By then, let alone the position of the student union president, he would not be able to keep his student status and would be expelled. In desperation, Penguin could only swallow his anger. Not only did he spit out the several thousand yuan he had withheld, but he also sold a lot of his laptops, iPhone 6s, etc., and collected 20,000 yuan, which he gave to Laolin as various expenses for the rescue station during this period. After the matter came to an end, Su Ming drove back to the zoo. A few days later, the media in Jiangjan City and Yangchuan City reported a piece of news almost at the same time. 3 months ago, Caring People rescued a group of dogs without quarantine certificates and temporarily placed them in the Changping County Rescue Station for foster care. Although the rescue station did not have enough funds, Laolin and Xiaolin lived frugally and tried their best to barely maintain it, ensuring that most of the dogs could survive and wait for people to adopt them. But after a few months, no one was willing to adopt. In desperation, the rescue station could only start a series of cooperation with Jiangjan Medical University, donating some weak dogs to the medical university for medical experiments. At the same time, the medical university provided funds to ensure that the remaining dogs in the rescue station and the dogs used for experiments were treated humanely. In conjunction with the news, some photos of dogs in the rescue station and the laboratory were posted. At least from the photos, these dogs are living well. Even though there is no way, the news still caused a heated discussion as soon as it came out. Some people think that this is a way to solve the problem, which not only reduces the burden on the country, but also helps medical institutions find suitable experimental subjects. For these dogs, it is also a contribution to mankind. In any case, it is better than waiting to die in the rescue station. Others think that this is too inhumane. The purpose of saving these dogs is to keep them alive, but in this way, they still die in the end. Why did they save these dogs in the first place? But most of the discussion is focused on dog lovers. Since you saved these dogs, why don't you take responsibility? Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 162. Is saving these dogs out of kindness and love, or is it just to prove that you are a kind and loving person through the act of saving dogs, so as to gain a sense of superiority and pleasure? This is the most discussed topic in recent days. I don't know who found a few photos. In the photos, after saving these dogs, most of the so-called caring people smiled, made a V-shaped victory sign, took photos and then uploaded these photos to WeChat Moments and Weibo, received many likes, and disappeared after a celebration banquet, leaving these dogs to fend for themselves. This is to let the rescue station pay for their love. This is like a person who says every day that he loves his girlfriend so much and is willing to give his life for her, but when it comes to paying the bill, this person disappears, and when his girlfriend really needs someone to accompany her and encounters a crisis, this person is playing games at home. Someone said so. No one asked them to save those dogs, and they have no obligation, but since they have taken action, they should be responsible to the end. This kind of half-hearted behavior is no different from abandoning your own dog, right? To put it bluntly, those dogs are not good-looking and dirty, so they are not liked by people. The world of dogs also pays attention to appearance. As a result, I don't know how, the spearhead was directed to the kind-hearted people again, and a heated discussion was set off on the internet, hoping that the people who rescued these dogs in the first place would come out and take responsibility for these dogs. With the intentional help of the authorities in the two cities, the personal information of the dog rescuers was soon exposed on the internet. This made the matter a bit serious. I don't know whether it was because of the pressure or because of love, some dog rescuers took the initiative to stand up and were willing to donate money to help these dogs. There are also very few who even offered to adopt them. But compared with the total number of dog lovers at the beginning, there are still too few people who took the initiative to stand up. Most dog lovers quietly changed their mobile phone numbers. At this time, the official Weibo of the two governments spoke out. They mainly talked about three issues. First, dog lovers or other people, civilians, have no obligation to protect dogs, so they should not use moral kidnapping to condemn dog lovers or dog eaters. The government will formulate relevant regulations as soon as possible to regulate the dog meat food market, from breeding, transportation, quarantine, slaughter, and sales, etc., to ensure the legal and effective operation of this market. Second, there must be an effective plan for animal rescue. Otherwise, even if this incident is resolved and the dogs in the Changping County Rescue Station are properly resettled, similar tragedies will happen again in the future. Third, in view of the opposition of the general public, the cooperation between the rescue station and Jiangjin Medical University is temporarily suspended. The two governments acted very quickly this time. The Yangchuan municipal government decided to officially allocate the two hills behind the Yangchuan Zoo, about several thousand acres of forest land, to the Yangchuan Zoo as the zoo's industry. On the one hand, as a large semi-open rescue area, the dogs rescued this time and various cats and dogs to be rescued in the future can settle here. On the other hand, it is also equivalent to clearly drawing a scope of management for the zoo, and issuing a clear red-headed document for future release and asset management, so as to avoid future disputes. At the same time, the provincial capital Jiangjin City took the initiative to donate funds to help Yangchuan City Zoo establish a large semi-open rescue area, and proposed that if there are more rescued animals in various places in the future, they can be uniformly raised here, funded by the local government and managed by Yangchuan City Zoo. After the government made such a statement, the online criticism suddenly became much smaller, and even a lot of praises appeared. After all, this time, both governments have come up with very practical solutions to solve the problem, and the efficiency is also very high, rather than empty talk. It was originally a disaster. If the dog selling and dog abuse incidents were reported truthfully, Laolin and Xiaolin would certainly not be able to escape, and the relevant supervisors of the medical university would also be scolded. Similarly, the supervisors and superiors of the rescue station would definitely be scolded by the public opinion, and Yangchuan City would not get any benefits. Instead, it would offend Jiangjin City and Changping County. It's okay to harm others and benefit yourself. Su Ming often does things that harm others and benefit himself. But if it harms others without benefiting himself, or even harms others and himself, it's too inexplicable. Only a psychopath would do these things. At that time, maybe those missing caring people will jump out again, stand on the moral high ground, and point out the way. After such an operation, Laolin and Xiaolin have become two diligent grassroots rescue workers. Although the methods used by the leaders of the rescue station and the medical university may not be appropriate, it shows that they have been working hard to solve this problem. The governments of both sides are in line with public opinion and act decisively, showing their strong governing ability. Dog lovers also escaped a disaster, as the zoo took over the dogs without them being held responsible. However, after this incident, if anyone wants to save the dogs again, they will probably think carefully before doing so. After all, they will be responsible after saving them. Everyone was happy, except for the student union president, Peng Lin. He replaced his iPhone 6 with a blue-screen Nokia, his Asus laptop with a second-hand desktop, and he could no longer be the student union president. He was busy working in the cafeteria every day to pay off his debts. His life was quite tight, and he even quit smoking. So, I also saved a future lung cancer patient. Su Ming suddenly felt that his image was taller. In fact, the biggest gain was the zoo. Last time, taking advantage of the donation, the back mountain was tacitly given to the zoo for wild release, but there was no document at that time, and it was not announced to the public. More importantly, letting the zoo release wild animals in the back mountain does not mean giving the back mountain to the zoo. The difference between the two is very big. In other words, you can use the site, but the ownership is not yours. If others need it, they can also use it. It's like a community square, where aunties can dance square dances and uncles can practice Tai Chi. But now, with the red-headed document, the meaning is completely different. The two hills in the back mountain clearly belong to the zoo's assets. According to the spirit of the previous meeting, the zoo can also use the areas outside these two hills. There is not much difference between the zoo and Suming. There are also dozens of dogs. For pet dogs, they are dirty, ugly, and not friendly, but for Suming, they can actually come in handy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 163. Sooner or later this mountain will be developed in the future. Rather than being developed by others, it is better to keep it firmly in the hands of the zoo director. Song said, release and wild animal protection do not require such a large area. But what do you think? No, why should we use such a large piece of forest land to build factories and houses? It cannot affect the survival of animals. I understand that, but I haven't really thought too much about what it will be used for at the moment. Maybe some cabbage or something. Su Ming made a joke, and then pointed to the Shuahun Lake below. The top priority now is to deal with the fish in the lake first. It will be the end of the year. Time flies so fast. I am fooling around here and walking around there. Half a year has almost passed. As the weather gradually cools down, the fish riding business on Shuahun Lake has long since stopped. Several big fish have been moved to the aquarium, and together with the finless porpoise and giant salamander, they enjoy the good benefits that only veteran cotters of the country have. The cruise ship business is still there. It's going on, and cats and kittens come all day long to sell tickets. One of the cats had an enlarged belly and was lazy all day long. Su Ming simply arranged a maternity leave for it. When the baby was born, he would come back to work. He was not short of money now. It's probably Dehe who did it, but maybe, the relationship between cats is very complicated now. This animal is similar to a human being. After it is full and warm, it will think about that and other things all day long. Ever since it followed Su Ming, the original stray cat has been a big era ahead of mankind. It jumped into the communist paradise with its thighs and couldn't eat or drink. Worry, life is worry-free, so apart from this, I don't seem to have any other pursuits. Especially with the continuous improvement of IQ, there seems to be signs of starting a palace fight. Poor wolf-dog brothers, they are both male and biological, they can't do whatever they want. But after the dogs arrive, these two gangsters will probably be exhausted to death. Speaking of the fish in Shuahun Lake, the recent increase has been amazing. The reason why I say it is amazing, not gratifying. On the one hand, fish grow so fast that it exceeds common sense. The fish in Shuahun Lake have only been put down for half a year. Even if there are black fish cakes to fatten them up, and even if Liangshi takes good care of them, according to common sense, they cannot grow much in half a year. But now the common size has reached the age of about 2 years. Size. Of course it has something to do with animal friends. Su Ming found that different animals often come into contact with animal friends, and the effects are different. Generally speaking, there are 3 types of effects: body shape, constitution, strength, agility, etc., and intelligence. For animals like cats and dogs, after being exposed to them for a long time, the main growth is intelligence. then physical fitness, and the body shape does not change much, while fish mainly grow in size, such as big-headed catfish, which has grown from half a catty to more than 10 catties in half a year. Su Ming even suspected that if the big head could live for decades, it might grow into a whale. On the other hand, especially in recent times, the fish in Shuahun Lake seem to be too active. When the weather is cold or very hot, fish are usually relatively quiet. They just find a nest to lie down and don't move much. But recently, there has been a loud noise of fish in Shuahun Lake, with fish of all sizes. The fish were scurrying everywhere, as if the nest had exploded. Liang Shi was startled. At first, he thought it was a lack of oxygen or that the fish had some disease. I measured the oxygen content in the water and it was very okay, no problem at all. I caught a few more fish and came up to check them out, but they didn't look like they were sick. What's going on? Su Ming didn't understand either. I don't understand either. I can only say that the fish is too energetic. Liang Shi scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Is there such a thing? Su Ming was stunned. There is a limit to high energy. For example, if a person is happy for a happy event for a few days, he or she will be nervous for a few days, which is about it. But according to Liang Shi, this is almost a month. The fish in the lake are still in an extremely excited state. That's not happy, but crazy. That's what happened to Fan Jin. Fortunately, this is not a bad thing. The fish are more active, less likely to get sick, and the meat will be firmer. The only problem is that they eat too much. Recently, they can no longer feed these guys just by relying on the feed business. As a last resort, they have to hire a zoo. The employees went to work together and went to the river to spread feed after get off work. But the fish was always so active, so it was not normal after all. If he couldn't find out the reason, how could Su Ming dare to sell it to the market with confidence? It would be a big trouble if it was eaten by others. There are hundreds of tons of fish in Shuahun Lake. How many people have been harmed? Maybe in the first half of the year, people in Yangchuan City will be sick, and then this book can be changed to a doomsday zombie type. After thinking about it, could it be that bastard Jojin did something else and put something weird into the lake? This is not to say there is no possibility, but it is unlikely. The defenses around the lake were loose on the outside and tight on the inside. The wolves, dogs, and cats had withdrawn and no longer stood guard by the river. However, as the number of bees and wasps in the back mountain increased sharply, Queen Bee and Queen Hu each sent many of their men. There are almost 1 or 2 bees and wasps on duty on every tree by the lake. If there is any trouble, they should not be able to hide it from themselves. After much deliberation, there is only one possibility, Tai Sui. The small Shuaxi lake where Tai Sui lives was dug out from Shuahun Lake some time ago, and the water on both sides is connected. The water created by Tai Sui obviously has some special effects, as both the savage and the giant salamander can prove. Could it be that the water soaked in Tai Sui caused the fish to become overly excited? So Su Ming did a special experiment, catching dozens of fish of various kinds and throwing them into the aquarium's water tank. After a few days, he went to see that the fish were indeed normal. After putting these fish back into the Shuahun Lake, they started to make a fuss again. There is no doubt that it was the water soaked by Tai Sui that caused it. Su Meng, get some water to drink, Su Ming shouted to Su Meng, who was lying on the edge of Shuaxi Lake and drinking water. After Su Meng followed him back to the human world, everything was normal. Except that he still couldn't speak, his physical strength was still amazing, and his appetite was also amazing. He was becoming more and more like an ordinary person in other aspects, except for one thing: he would lie on the edge of Shuaxi Lake every day like an animal and drink the water in the lake. Su Ming sometimes drank some of the water soaked by Tai Sui, which was indeed quite refreshing, but it was all boiled and he didn't drink much. He now had to confirm that this kind of water did not have any negative effects. Soon Su Meng came back with a big bucket of water. This time he used lake water. It looked like there were some floating objects in the water, like cotton wool. Damn it, I'll just dedicate myself to science. Su Ming prepared a lot of common medicines, dialed his mobile phone number directly to 120, and then gritted his teeth, hugged the bucket and gulped it down. It was still the same formula, and it still tasted the same. After drinking half a bucket of water, except for the bloated stomach, everything else was normal. Instead, he felt refreshed and energetic. Then Su Ming sat on the chair, motionless. Xiao Su, what are you doing? Sister Tong walked by the lake from a distance, saw Su Ming sitting alone on the waterside platform in a daze, and asked loudly. I'm having diarrhea. Su Ming waved his hand, looking like no one should mess with me. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 164. Sister Tong was stunned for a moment as she told Su Ming, isn't this kid crazy, she muttered and walked away to herself. Until it got dark, Su Ming didn't feel any discomfort in his stomach. On the contrary, he was still a little hungry. Is this okay? Su Ming was a little dumbfounded this time. This was half a bucket of lake water with floating objects in it. If you drink it like this, nothing will happen? Even if it is ordinary cold water, you will definitely get a stomachache after drinking so much in one go. To say that there is nothing wrong with it is not quite accurate. Su Ming was indeed very energetic throughout the day, but when he went to bed at night, he slept very soundly. In fact, he only slept for more than 4 hours. He woke up before dawn, but he felt that he was already full of energy. All made up. Is this the legendary saying that drinking during the day will keep you from falling asleep, and drinking at night will help you sleep soundly? Uncle Zhao, I have something to trouble you. Su Ming waited patiently until dawn, and then called Zhao Yun. Tell me, is it fish? It's almost time to go on the market. I'll get some samples of all kinds of fish and I'll help you sell them. Zhao Yun asked, yawning over there. We'll talk about the fish in a few days. I have a copy of the water quality here. Can you find an agency to help me test it? But it must be kept confidential, Su Ming said. Well, okay, I'll send it to Switzerland for inspection. No one else will know. Zhao Yun thought for a while and said. Su Ming had already learned about Zhao Yun's energy. Even if he said that he would send it to the moon to test it, Su Ming would think it was normal. Now we must find out what the effects of the water soaked in Tai Sui are. And it requires scientific testing. After calling Zhao Yun, the phone rang not long after. It was Lao Lin from Changping County. Boss, I'm taking the dogs on the road. I'll be at your zoo around noon, Lao Lin said. Okay, give me a call when you get there, and I'll pick you up at the door. Regarding the Huishan Reserve, the efficiency of the governments on both sides can be said to be very high this time. In just 1 week, various approval documents have been completed, and the sponsorship fund of 200,000 yuan from Jiangjin City has been received. Speaking of 200,000, Su Ming had to complain. Although it was said to be a symbolic sponsorship, it may not be too symbolic. You are a provincial capital city. How much trouble I have saved you. In the end, I paid 100,000. Su Ming didn't have any good solution for this shameless behavior. Who would let someone have a high official? 200,000 is better than nothing. Anyway, this money will not fall into my pocket, I am just the specific person in charge. Looking at the time, it was only 8:30. Su Ming didn't want to sleep anymore. He got up and took out an empty mineral water bottle from under the bed. He went to Shuixi Lake to fill a bottle of water brewed by Tai Sui, and then took Su Ming with him. Drive to Zhao Yun's house. As soon as she arrived at the door of Zhao Yun's villa, she saw Zhao Qian walking out with Cheng Cheng. Cheng Cheng was also carrying a big skull bag with a bear pattern on her back. Zhao Qian squatted down to help her tie her shoelaces. Cheng Cheng, why are you pouting so high? Are you going to hang up the soy sauce bottle? Su Ming went up and asked with a smile. Zhao Qian looked back and was startled by the big man Su Meng first, and then said, "Oh, Xiao Su, I'm taking Cheng Cheng to the ballet. I no want go feed. Good. It hurts." Ah, Cheng Cheng said loudly word by word, then pulled Su Ming and said pitifully, "Brother, can you take me out to play?" Zhao Qian quickly sneaked behind and gave Su Ming a wink. Su Ming rubbed Chin-Chin's head and threatened her seriously, "No, girls won't grow taller if they don't dance ballet." Ah, really? Cheng Cheng looked at Su Ming suspiciously. "This, ha ha, Aunt Zhao, please explain it to Cheng Cheng. I'll go in first." After saying that, he quickly took Su Ming and sneaked into the villa door sideways. If Cheng Cheng was his own child, he would stop dancing if he didn't want to dance. If he danced ballet, he might not be able to do well in the future. But now adults are reluctant to let their children lose at the starting line. Zhao Qian winked again. As an outsider, it is not easy for her as an outsider to dismantle other people's mothers in front of their children. As for why they don't grow taller if they don't dance ballet, let Zhao Qian deal with this question. Be upset. It's funny to say that Cheng Cheng has a father like Zhao Yun. When he was born, he was much higher than other people's starting line. This is like running 100 meters. Others are at the starting point at the beginning, but Cheng Cheng is already at 50 meters at the beginning. This is not enough, we have to get 90 meters. Maybe parents are like this. If I am not a parent, I cannot understand how my parents feel. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Zhao Yun sitting in the living room on the first floor eating breakfast in a pajamas with many kawaii bears printed on them. "Uncle Zhao, do you have a bear in your family?" Su Ming grinned. "No one in the country is a bear." Zhao Yun looked down at his pajamas, smiled, and said, "Her mother bought the child. Women never grow up." Then he pointed to the plates and bowls on the table. Holding the bowl, he said, "This is your cousin, he's so strong. Have you two had breakfast? If not, let's have some together. We'll talk after eating." Oh, Su Ming went to the kitchen to get 2 pairs of bowls and chopsticks, and took Su Ming to sit at the dining table. The result was a bit tragic. Su Ming had too much food and didn't know what politeness meant. He ate it all in a hurry, and in the blink of an eye there was nothing left on the table. Fortunately, Zhao Yun ate earlier, otherwise he would have been hungry. Zhao Yun kept staring at Su Ming's face while eating, and asked Su Ming strangely, "I've never met him before, right? Why does he feel familiar?" "Probably not, but it's strange to say, I also think he looks familiar," Su Ming said casually. This sentence is really a brain hole. Fortunately Zhao Yun didn't pay much attention, and said casually, "Nonsense, your own cousin doesn't look familiar to you. Is this what is called a common face? Who knows who looks familiar?" Su Ming wondered. "You might as well say it's a fate in the previous life." Zhao Yun was sometimes quite nonsensical. After a few words, he asked, "Where is your water quality sample? Bring it to me." Oh, Su Ming stuffed half a tea egg into his mouth, and took out the mineral water bottle filled with water from his bag and put it on the table. Seeing the wrinkled mineral water bottle, Zhao Yun couldn't help but twitch his mouth twice. "You just use this thing to hold it. Anyway, I'm not testing the bottle, but the water inside." Zhao Yun shrugged, took the bottle, unscrewed the lid and sniffed it under his nose. "It smells good." "What's the matter? Is there any problem?" "It's not a big problem, I just feel it's different from ordinary water." Zhao Yun didn't ask Su Ming about the origin of this thing, just nodded, "Okay, I'll send it for inspection as soon as possible. At least 10 days, at most half a month, I'll let you know when the result is available." "Okay, I have something to do at noon, so I'll go back first." Su Ming stood up and walked out, and put the last tea egg on the table into his pocket. Take a tea egg for you. Are you a bit promising? You can also make tea eggs. Zhao Yun was speechless. This thing is so precious, most people can't afford it, and you can only come across it at your place. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 165. Su Ming is not the only one who is worried about the fish. Zhou Jin has also been very upset recently at the Huading Reservoir not far away. Strictly speaking, he is half happy and half worried. This matter can be divided into two stages. The first stage was after the Model Worker Conference. During that period, fish kept dying in the Huading Reservoir. At first, Baldy wanted to hide it, but later, there were too many dead fish and he could not hide it anymore. Baldy had to tell Zhou Jin. Zhou Jin was basically still in the hospital at that time. After hearing about it, he almost vomited blood again. Maybe it was because he had been vomiting blood more frequently recently and there was not much blood to vomit. In the end, he coughed a few times and finally held it back. But strangely enough, there have been no more fish deaths in the Huading Reservoir since that day. Not only did no more fish die, but the fish in the reservoir actually became much more active. Like Su Ming, Zhou Jin also thought that the fish were sick at first, but after catching a few fish and checking them, nothing was wrong. Zhou Jin was an old hand at fish farming, and he immediately realized that it was definitely a good thing for the fish to be particularly active, so he ordered Baldy to increase the amount of feeding, and try to speed up the time to fatten them up again before the end of the year. As for why these fish suddenly became active, and whether there would be any hidden dangers after they were sold, he didn't think as much as Su Ming did. He was in urgent need of money now, so that he could continue to contract the reservoir in the future. The sudden activity of these fish meant that he could make more money, which was a happy thing for Zhou Jin. Here, Su Ming had already rushed back to the zoo, and was on the side of Shuahun Lake near the back mountain, observing the water surface while waiting for Lao Lin to bring the dogs over. Several alligator gar also lived in a small area on this side of the lake, and two females were already pregnant, with bulging bellies. Su Ming didn't know whether letting the big-bellied alligator gar go to the reservoir to hunt fish again would cause miscarriage or something. Anyway, cats have maternity leave when they are pregnant, and it can't be said that alligator gar don't have it, so he let them rest. But while the alligator gar was resting, the other shrimp soldiers and crab generals were busy digging holes under the water. All the shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the Water Army Lake concentrated their efforts to expand a large channel. When this channel was completed, it could accommodate large fish weighing less than 10 kilograms. A 10-kilogram fish, held in the arms, is a circle larger than a human baby. Su Ming also got it, and found that he was really stupid before. Instead of killing the fish in Huading Reservoir, why not drive those fish to the Water Army Lake and use them for himself? After figuring this out, Su Ming kept slapping his forehead, and was so annoyed that he wanted to jump into the water. He was too kind before, and only thought of giving people a taste of their own medicine, using alligator gar to harm Zhou Jin's fish, but why didn't he think of digging a bigger hole and getting these fish over? When the time comes, sell a batch, and there will be another batch in the lake, which is inexhaustible, which is equivalent to Zhou Jin helping him raise fish. Leader, are you okay? You can't hit your forehead like that, or your brain will be damaged if you do it for too long. Lao Lin jumped off a large truck not far away, and looked at Su Ming, who was hitting his forehead with shock, with a concerned look. After the last big incident was exposed, Lao Lin was very scared. As the director of the rescue station, he knew too well what responsibilities he would bear, and dismissal was the least of his responsibilities. But Su Ming not only didn't stab him out in the end, but also saved his uncle and nephew. In the report planned by Su Ming, his uncle and nephew also had a meaning of no credit but hard work. Not only did he save the two of them, but because the zoo was going to build a large rescue center, the rescue station in Changping County, which existed in name only, didn't even need to exist in name, and it was directly dead. Laolin and Xiaolin were asked by Su Ming to come to the zoo to manage the rescue station in the back mountain. The uncle and nephew actually had no bad intentions. They were forced to come up with that stupid method at the beginning. If there was any method, who would want to be a bad guy and do such a wicked thing? In their eyes, the zoo is a high-end superior department, and in fact, it is. From the county-level rescue station to the city-level zoo, and still managing such a big mountain, it is not an exaggeration to describe these two people as rising to the top. From then on, Laolin called Su Ming leader. Seeing Su Ming standing by the lake and slapping his head, Laolin was scared. This big brother who relies on him didn't think about it and wanted to jump into the river? I slapped my forehead for fun, Su Ming said casually. Ah! Leader. Laolin suddenly realized, no wonder people say that people in the city know how to play. Laolin, don't call me leader in the future, you are much older than me. That won't work, you are the leader, a deputy section level cotter. The same level as our county bureau leaders, Laolin insisted. Okay. Su Ming didn't understand how the levels in the zoo were calculated. Dean Song was a deputy division level cotter and enjoyed division level treatment, but the highest level below him was a few deputy section level cotters including himself. The city was half a level higher than the county, so he was indeed at the same level as the directors of Changping County. Leader, the medical school has returned the dogs, a total of 82 dogs, I brought them all, what should I do now? Laolin asked. Wait, Su Ming had just finished speaking when a wow, wow, wow cry came from not far away. It sounded like a wolf howling, and Laolin didn't think anything of it at first. This was a zoo, so it was normal for wolves to howl. But when he looked over the sound, Laolin was shocked, his eyes suddenly widened, his legs weakened, and he grabbed Su Ming, leader, wolves, wolf, 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 run out. Looking in the direction of the sound, a gray wolf about the size of a big dog rushed over here like lightning, and two wolfhounds followed behind and chased it. It looked like a wolf from the zoo had escaped, and the wolfhounds were catching the fugitive. It's just a wolf, where did the wolf come from? It's not a three-wolf case. Su Ming laughed and bent down to hug Huiya, who was rushing over. The little wolf grew up very fast. After more than a month, it was already bigger than an ordinary dog, like a smaller wolfhound. Huiya was a wolf after all, not a dog. Like its father, it didn't like being hugged by humans. After rubbing its neck on Su Ming's arm twice, it shook its head coldly and walked away, squatting at Su Ming's feet, and looked around with a defiant look. Su Ming couldn't help but complain, can you stop pretending to be cold and arrogant? You're sitting like this, no different from a dog. On the contrary, Wang Ke and Defoe have recently acted as Huiya's babysitters. After returning from the back mountain, Dean Song spent half a day with Huiya in person, and finally agreed that Huiya could leave the cage and wander around the zoo when no one was there, but he could not go far, and he had to be guarded by two big wolf dogs to avoid accidents. When Huiya squatted like this, Wang Ke and Defoe also squatted side by side on his left and right sides. It looked like a concave shape with high sides and low in the middle. Leader, did you raise this wolf? It won't bite people, right? Laolin asked in surprise. It will bite people, but if you don't provoke it, it won't bite you. Let's go, get in the car. The wolf-dog brothers seemed to understand human words, with their two front paws on the back of the car, and squatted hard on their hind legs and rushed up. Huiya was left alone, squatting behind the car in a daze, looking up at the back car. This guy is too short and can't get up. Hey, I gave the dwarf a heavy blow. Su Ming simply hugged Huiya and jumped into the car. Laolin was extremely impressed and thought that it was no wonder that no one was adopting dogs now. It turned out that people in the city had already started to play with wolves. Su Ming had no idea that Laolin had gone astray. He brought Grey Fang here because he actually wanted to release Grey Fang and the dogs into the wild. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 166. From the moment he prepared to rescue these dogs, Su Ming was brewing a big plan that sounded completely impossible. Su Ming saw the 80-odd dogs in the car for the first time, and after testing them with his mental power, he found that these dogs were probably really scared of humans and had no relatives at all, even if they had been raised in the rescue station for a while. The same thing happened after time. After seeing humans, I instinctively resisted and completely lost trust in humans. I have animal friends and I can get along with them normally, but other people can't at all. If people adopt these dogs, or let these dogs still live in human society, it is like putting a timid person in the horror city, which is equivalent to making them suffer from fear for 20 hours. Therefore, whether it is sending someone to take care of it or adopting it, it will not work. Therefore, he was not prepared to let these dogs continue to live as pets. Dogs, after all, are not creatures of nature, but domesticated by humans. The earliest dogs were actually wolves. Wolves were kept in captivity. After several generations of domestication, they gradually lost their wild nature and turned into dogs. Then humans crossbreeded various dogs, and then there were a wide variety of pet dogs. Su Ming's imagination was wide open, and he planned to let these dogs live in the wild, reverse domestication, and turn them into wolves again, or even if they could not turn into wolves, they could turn into wild animals again. No need to rely on others to survive. If someone else were to do this, even if it were done by a National Animal Research Institute, it would be impossible. But with the help of animal friends, it may not be impossible. And Su Ming has a natural advantage. Huiya can help him. A very important factor in reverse domestication is to adapt to wildlife and learn wildlife skills, or in other words, there must be a similar wild animal as their teacher. But the general beasts are either domesticated in the zoo and don't have any wild survival skills, or they are purely natural wild monsters. For example, find a real wild big bad wolf. It has rich survival experience, but it's not safe. Su Ming is not there, so he might be able to eat all these dogs as food. Grey Fang can play this role exactly. It is right between the wild and the captive. It is obedient and safe, but has not been domesticated in its bones. It is born with genes for surviving in the wild. After all, wolves have better survival adaptability than dogs in the mountains. On the other hand, the existence of these dogs is also helpful to Grey Fang. Although Grey Fang is a ferocious big bad wolf in the future, he is still young after all. He can even climb into a car with difficulty. It is unsafe to leave him alone in the wild. Ordinary little rabbits and foxes are not its opponents, but Grey Fang is aggressive by nature. If he encounters a big bad wolf, a big bear, a big wild boar, etc. Of course, there are actually no such things in the back mountains now, but when he meets a little the wild boar is also tough enough for Grey Fang. In the past, Su Ming could only take Huiya with him when he went to the back mountain. However, Su Ming did not need to reverse domesticate into a monkey and could not go to Monkey Mountain every day, so the progress of Huiya's release into the wild was very slow. Now there are a large number of dogs working with Grey Fang. Grey Fang teaches them how to live in the wild. When encountering trouble, these dogs help Grey Fang fight in groups. As long as they don't encounter a large number of people, no one can defeat them. Although I have to say that among this group of dogs, the Chihuahua seems to have no fighting ability, but the few native dogs are still quite scary. Although Golden Retrievers are not ferocious, they are still big enough to scare ordinary animals. However, Su Ming also considered that these pet dogs would not be able to adapt to life in the wild for a while, at least their intestines and stomachs would not be able to eat raw meat, so he spent a few thousand yuan from the 200,000 yuan sponsored by Jiangjin City. A large circle of kennels was built on the hillside, and Laolin Xiaolin would come over from time to time to take care of them and feed them. Do you understand? Su Ming explained the next work to Brother Wolfdog and Huiya as briefly as possible. In fact, there is no particularly troublesome job. From now on, Grey Fang and the Wolfdog brothers will live in the back mountain. They are the heads of 70 or 80 dogs, forming a mixed group. They take them to play everywhere in the mountains every day. That's it? Just one, don't go too far, the range of activities is limited to the hill allocated to the zoo. Don't hurt anyone either. Regarding Su Ming's plan, Laolin instinctively felt that it was a bit unreliable. People in the city couldn't play it like this again. Su Ming exerted all his strength, forced out all his mental energy, gave these dogs a baptism, so that they could better integrate into the natural environment, and then opened the dog cages one by one. It's strange to say that these dogs and Su Ming are considered acquaintances, but after getting along with each other for a long time, they can't say they have a good relationship with each other. But when Grey Fang appeared, they showed no resistance. Instead, they walked out of the cage and boldly approached Grey Fang. Grey Fang squatted on the ground and was soon surrounded by a large group of dogs. Compared with many large dogs, Grey Fang is still small, but he is full of momentum. Under the attention of hundreds of dogs, he squats in the middle with his little head raised, squinting at the sky, accompanied by his wolfdog brothers and guardians, looking like he was struck by thunder. Like splitting. The other dogs also imitated Huiya's behavior, squatting down and looking up at the sky together. Even Su Ming couldn't help but look up to the sky, as if there was something strange in the sky. At this moment, Huiya suddenly let out a wolf howl at the top of his lungs. After a few seconds of silence, the place went completely crazy. All the dogs followed suit and started barking. The sound was enough to make people collapse. Some puppies, such as Chihuahuas and Pekingese, barked completely out of tune, sounding like ghosts. The two huskies were the most ferocious, barking like real wolves, and their body shape and appearance were also similar, but if you look closely, their eyes are quite stupid. Ayo ayo ayo, oh oh oh, woof woof woof, there was a burst of ghost howling on the back mountain. It seemed like half a minute of barking. Some dogs were hoarse, but they still followed suit. Grey Fang probably felt that howling was a bit boring, so he shook his head and stopped howling, then impatiently slapped the dogs in front of him with his paws and ran towards the mountain. A large group of dogs followed without Su Ming's instructions. Dozens of dogs that were barely alive a few days ago, now seemed to have been reborn, bursting with great vitality, barking and following Grey Fang to the back mountain. The mountains were full of dogs. A few guys with short legs were at the end, running desperately with their tongues wagging. Ha 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 ha, success is in sight. Seeing this scene, Laolin was short-circuited, and Su Ming put his hands on his waist and laughed wildly. These huge mountains will be difficult for him to manage in the future, but with these dozens of dogs and the rescued animals that will be sent in the future, they are all his subordinates. What bad guys dare to run wild here? How does the saying go, where there are animals, is my country. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 167. When he arrived at Zhao Yun's house, he handed over a thick document. Su Ming opened it and saw dozens of pages inside, all in English, with many chemical formulas and strange symbols. I can't understand it at all. Su Ming threw the document aside and said, Uncle Zhao, just tell me briefly. Is this water harmful? Harmful? You ask me to help with the identification because you are afraid that this water has germs, right? Zhao Yun nodded, and then said, then I can tell you responsibly. According to the results of this identification, there are indeed many trace elements and fungi in the submitted water, but they are not harmful at all. At least according to the current scientific and technological medical methods, it is completely harmless. And because it contains. Zhao Yun chattered a lot of professional terms. Although Su Ming was a biology major and had a little to do with this, after all, he hadn't touched professional knowledge for a long time, and he was confused. Finally, Zhao Yun said, simply put, this kind of water is extremely beneficial to most animals, including humans. It is rich in a variety of nutrients. Long-term drinking can enhance physical fitness, improve immunity, and even extend life. Why does it sound like a medical advertisement to me? Su Ming scratched his head and laughed. What do you think medicine is? From the perspective of traditional Chinese medicine, water, plants, animals, and even ores can all be used as medicine because they contain various elements. If there is a certain object that contains very special elements, that is the legendary magic medicine. For example, 1,000-year-old ginseng can make people die. Your water has high nutritional value, so from a certain point of view, it is a kind of medicine. Of course, it has no effect on treating a specific disease. Then can I understand that this water is super mineral water? Su Ming asked. That's okay. Anyway, if you plan to use it to produce mineral water, it will definitely sell better than any well-known mineral water in the country. Produce mineral water? Su Ming thought about it and forget it. The annual output of a mineral water factory is not as simple as hundreds of thousands or millions of bottles of water. Tai Sui cannot brew that much water, and the scope of Tai Sui's influence is diminishing. The further away from Tai Sui, the worse the effect of the water. The water sent to Zhao Yun for inspection was taken from Shuoxi Lake. Tai Sui was in Shuoxi Lake, and when he arrived at Shuahun Lake, Su Ming could clearly see it. I feel the effect is much worse. As long as you can be sure that the water is indeed beneficial and harmless, then there will be no problem. Not only can it be used to raise fish, but it is also good to drink for yourself. It will have many uses in the future. There is something I still want to ask. Of course, it's okay if you don't want to say it. Zhao Yun still couldn't hold it back and asked, where did you get this water? As far as I know, even if it is from several countries, the water quality in the source area is not as good as this water. Su Ming thought for a while and said, I said that groundwater was found in my waterside lake. Do you believe it? Zhao Yun is also a person who has gone through many hardships in society. Listening to Su Ming's words, you can tell that he doesn't want to talk. Zhao Yun chuckled, I asked this rudely. Where does the water come from? That's your business. What I mean is, can you provide a certain amount of such water on a regular basis? It should be possible. What exactly do you want to do? Su Ming asked in confusion. Does Zhao Yun really want to make a living by selling water? That would be too miserable. Zhao Yun chuckled and said, since you have such excellent water quality, it would be too wasteful to leave it idle. If you are willing, we can set up a winery. Of course, there must be a stable water supply. Starting a winery? Su Ming immediately realized that this seemed feasible. Unlike mineral water plants, wineries do not need that much water. The water that Tai Sui can brew at present should be able to support a small winery. How much water do we need every month? Su Ming asked. According to the quality of the water you provided, it can be diluted and used, and the dosage will not be exaggerated. Strictly speaking, your water is used as an additive, not a raw material. Specifically, a dedicated person must do the planning and determine the wineries. The scale can only be determined later, but I estimate that tens of tons of water will be needed in a year, Zhao Yun said. If it weighs dozens of tons, that's no problem at all. The water in the current small lake in Shuoxi alone weighs far more than this. Tai Sui can soak a lake in a year, raise fish, and make wine, which is more than enough. As long as you are sure that you can provide water of this size, I will start arranging people to plan the construction of the factory. Zhao Yun specifically warned that the supply of water must be stable, and he must not deal with all aspects. Well, it turned out that Su Ming was in trouble and couldn't get out so much water. Wine is a relatively profitable industry, but there are many good wines on the market now. If an unknown small winery wants to find a way to gain a foothold in the market and make money, it must have its own characteristics and be different. If Su Ming could not provide enough high-quality water and could only produce ordinary wine, then there would be no need to run this winery. Don't worry, it's no problem. Su Ming nodded, thought for a while, and asked, what kind of wine do you want to make specifically? Liquor, fruit wine, or something like that? If you don't have a particularly good recipe, it would be safer to make liquor. Zhao Yun joked casually. Of course, if you can get the recipe for monkey wine, that would be the best. We can definitely make a profit. Pen. As soon as they finished speaking, both of them were stunned and looked straight at each other. That's right, why don't you make monkey wine? Zhao Yun slapped his thigh. Even if it's not made by monkeys, using the high-quality water you provided, the fruit wine brewed will definitely be much better than the ones on the market. And if you can talk at the zoo now, you can definitely send a few monkeys to the winery to show off and do some stunts. This is Zhao Yun's idea, and Su Ming's idea is one step closer. The old Monkey King knows how to make the recipe for monkey wine. As long as the next time the old Monkey King makes wine, he will follow and watch, and use it. Record the number of fruits, which fruits, what process is required, how much time, etc. Even if it is not the original monkey wine, it is definitely very close to the real monkey wine. And Zhao Yun's suggestion is also great. When the time comes, he can get a few monkeys to go to the winery and pretend to be making wine, or simply make wine for real. The publicity effect will definitely be great. I think it's pretty good. Su Ming gave a thumbs up. Anyway, the winery won't be settled for a while. After I go back, I will find time to train the monkeys. Haha, I've even thought of the name of the wine, Yang Chuan Dashan Liquor Industry. Zhao Yun said. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 168. The two of them plan the winery again. If the investment is not too big, Su Ming also wants to contribute some money, and provide water, formula, monkeys, etc., so that he can have more shares. Zhao Yun is indifferent, as if it doesn't matter to him whether he controls or not. His principles of doing business are very strange. He is not like some bosses who have a strong desire for control and must take the majority and control the dominant power. He is different. He is an investor type. He has a share in everything, but he will not manage the company, nor does he have to be the largest shareholder. In this way, as long as there are benefits, he will have a share, and he doesn't need to worry too much. Even if the investment fails occasionally, it won't hurt. If he encounters bad luck, the company violates some major policies, or even breaks the law, he doesn't have to take responsibility. However, since you also want to invest, you have to prepare the money. This is not a matter of hundreds of thousands, Zhao Yun said. The winery is an industry. The factory equipment, employees, raw materials, and future advertising investment are all real money. You can't save any money. It's just right that I sold the fish during this period, and I have money on hand. Su Ming nodded. Since it is confirmed that the water is fine, he can sell fish with confidence. The small business of boating and riding fish some time ago, plus the money left from the last wine sale, he still has nearly 2 million on hand. If he invests in a winery, I'm afraid it will take at least this amount, and it may not be enough. He can't invest all the money on hand, otherwise his capital chain will be broken, so he must sell the fish as soon as possible. If the profit of fish farming is good, he must keep some money as a backup fund to continue raising fish next year. Well, I'll give you a few business cards, which are the phone numbers of the supply departments of several restaurants in the city. When you go back, catch a batch of fish, and each restaurant will send £100 first, and try it out. Zhao Yun took out a small stack of business cards and handed them to Su Ming. In addition to hotels, the aquatic market is also a big part of the shipment, but Zhao Yun has no connections in the aquatic market, so he can only rely on Su Ming to go from house to house. After working for half a year, it was finally time to harvest. Liang Shi brought a few newly recruited workers, a newly bought fishing net and boxes for fish to Shuahun Lake. The zoo's employees who had nothing to do also gathered by the lake to watch the excitement. Since it was not a large-scale fishing day, Shuahun Lake was still open for business. There were still many tourists rowing on the water. Liang Shi took the workers on 2 small boats. Su Ming stood on the bow of a small speedboat and shouted, "Open the net." As a result, everyone around laughed. It turned out that before Liang Shi and his team cast the net, the fish in the lake kept jumping on the water, as if they couldn't wait to be caught. Some even jumped onto the nearby boats, swinging their tails and jumping around. The fishermen had never seen such a scene before. They could only say that there were too many fish in the lake and they were too active. A large net was cast down and dragged forward slowly by the assault boat. Before it went far, the large net was dragged behind. The densely packed fish twisted and turned in the net, and the boat could hardly move. Finally, the net was dragged to the shore. Several workers pulled it towards the shore together, but they couldn't pull it. Su Ming made a phone call and transferred 4 young and strong security guards from the security department. 7 or 8 people shouted slogans and dragged the large net to the shallow water area and then pulled it to the shore. Su Ming was sweating tiredly, thinking that this was also because he was poor. In the future, when he had money, he would directly use the machine, and there would be no need for people to pull the net so troublesomely. When the fish were in the lake, they didn't feel anything. After being pulled up, they were piled up into a small mountain of fish, which looked amazing. Many tourists gathered around to join in the fun. Finally, the weight was weighed. This net of fish actually caught more than 1,200 kilograms. "Hey, are you selling these fish?" a tourist asked on the side. Selling, all at market price. Su Ming was happy. He didn't expect that someone would buy the fish right after he caught it. It was a good start. The tourists were just joining in the fun. Fish were not expensive anyway. It didn't matter where you bought them. Those who paid and those who could bear the weight. As a result, when it was almost time to get off work, half of the fish in this net had been sold. "That's good. You can just set up a stall by the lake to sell fish in the future," Section Chief Dong joked. "Everyone is just looking for fun. If I rely on this alone, I will never be able to sell the fish in this lake." Su Ming laughed. However, what old Dong said was not completely unreasonable. The water army lake was empty anyway. Just like selling feed in the past, let the zoo employees sell fish here in their spare time. They can sell as much as they can. Next, Su Ming sorted the remaining 800 kilograms of fish into 7 portions, and then sent them to several stores according to the business cards given by Zhao Yun, with different stores having different business scopes. For example, those who specialize in hot pot mainly send blackfish, bighead carp and the like, and those who are more famous for barbecue mainly send silver carp and crucian carp, and regular restaurants send some of the 4 major carps. Most of these restaurants have some relationship with Zhao Yun, and Zhao Yun even holds shares in some of them. So although they don't know how Su Ming's fish is, it's still smooth. They all receive it. Anyway, each family only has more than 100 kilograms. If they eat well, they will buy more. If they don't eat well, they will give face to Zhao Yun, but Su Ming will not do business next time. After visiting the restaurants, Su Ming selected a lot of fish and sent them all to Zhao Yun. Zhao Qian was also at home. She was startled to see Su Ming carrying 2 bags as big as a person. Something was squirming violently in the bags. After hearing that they were all fish raised by Su Ming himself, Zhao Qian turned back and called to the second floor, "Old Zhao, where are you going to put so many fish?" Zhao Yun, wearing pajamas with many teddy bears on them, walked down from the second floor in slippers and pointed to a door on the first floor. "No one uses that bathroom, put it in the bathtub." 2 large bags of fish, more than 100 kilograms, were poured into a large bathtub. After filling it with water, white foam gurgled out. So many fish, so many fish. Cheng Cheng probably didn't have to learn ballet today, so she followed him into the bathroom and found a small toothbrush to poke and fiddle in the bathtub. "Why did you send so many fish to me? Didn't I ask you to deliver them to the restaurant first?" Zhao Yun asked Su Ming curiously. Su Ming said, "The restaurant has delivered it all, and there is still a lot left. It's just right to send it over for you to try." "Okay, we'll have fish for lunch. I'll go prepare some seasonings and stuff. Old Zhao, little Su, you two should clean up the fish." Zhao Qian gave Zhao Yun a meaningful wink, then twisted her waist and went out. Su Ming was stunned. What does this mean? The couple are old, and it's inappropriate to flirt with me, a young man, right? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Se Nian Bai. Chapter 169. Men all like women to ogle at them, but a guy like Zhao Yun, who has been married for many years, understands deeply that it is definitely not a good thing for his wife to ogle for no reason. This wink means that Zhao Yun can start working hard. "Don't be idle, kid. Go kill the fish with me." The two of them carried a large basin of fish to the backyard of Zhao Yun's villa and placed it next to the faucet. Unexpectedly, Zhao Yun was also good at housework. The fish were struggling incessantly. Zhao Yun took the back of a kitchen knife and hit the back of the fish's head very skillfully. The fish stopped moving. Then he used the scissors to cut off the fish. The stomach was opened and all the internal organs were taken out. Su Ming's eyelids jumped when he saw it, which meant killing fish. If it was killing people, Zhao Yun's method was definitely that of a professional killer. So the two people started a bloody slaughtering activity in the backyard of Zhao Garden. Cheng Cheng squatted aside. The little girl was very courageous. When she saw the bloody scene of killing fish, her face did not turn red, her heart did not beat, and she did not scream about cruelty like other little girls. Instead, she moved as small the bench was watching with great concentration. It seemed that he was the true successor of his father and would be a good fish killer in the future. "How are you negotiating with those restaurants? Is it possible to carry out subsequent sales?" Zhao Yun's hands were full of blood, while he pulled out a large pile of internal organs and other things from the belly of a black fish, and threw it in the trash can nearby. While casually asking Su Ming, "I sent a batch to each house, and the other party accepted them all, and gave me the money according to the market price." However, Su Ming said, washing a disemboweled silver carp with water, "But I don't care. It seemed that they were not planning to order fish from me in the future. After I delivered the fish, they didn't even leave my phone number or business card. I intentionally mentioned the follow-up business, but the other party didn't respond. That's it." Zhao Yun wiped the sweat with his arm, thought for a moment, and said, "This is understandable. After all, they are used to buying fish from Huading Reservoir, so there is still a certain risk in changing suppliers rashly. Take your time, they want this batch of fish from you anyway. If you can eat it, we can talk about it later." That's what he said, but Su Ming was waiting for money. If he didn't sell this batch of fish as soon as possible, he would not have the money to start many other things such as the winery and the development of the back mountain. "How about I come forward to help you?" Zhao Yun asked. Zhao Yun has a good relationship with the owners of several stores, and some of them even directly own shares. If he comes forward, the other party will definitely buy some fish from Su Ming because of his face. Su Ming thought for a while and said, it's better not to use it. If you come forward, it's like you are using the back door to support the relationship. Even if you buy it from me, it won't be too much. It might even make our relationship very embarrassing. As long as your fish is good, you don't have to worry about lack of sales, Zhao Yun said. That's true, but what is good and what is bad? Most people may not be able to eat similar fish. Besides, Su Ming didn't have time to slowly expand the market, it would be too time-consuming. Then what are you going to do? Zhao Yun asked. I do have a way. I thought of it a long time ago, but I'm not sure whether it will work or not. Let's not talk about it for now. Let's talk about it after lunch, Su Ming said. Zhao Yun looked at him strangely. Why do I feel that your tone sounds like you are about to eat your head off? Su Ming laughed, chopped off a fish head with a knife, and waved the fish head in his hand. Isn't it just a decapitation meal? Chang Chang clapped her hands and shouted, Big brother is so good at swordsmanship. Zhao Yun. At noon, the Zhao family's food was strangely rich. I say rich because there are a lot of dishes. There are 10 fried dishes and 1 soup, which fills a big table. It can be said to be weird because these 10 dishes come with a soup, all of which are fish, such as fish head with chopped pepper, braised crucian carp, fried fish cubes, steamed silver carp, blackened fish stewed with tofu, fish soup. Zhao Qian didn't dare to kill fish, but her cooking skills were pretty good. It was the same fish, but she could cook it in a variety of ways, and it didn't look monotonous when placed on the table. It was paired with colorful seasonings, plates, and bowls of different shapes. It's like a feast, and it looks very appetizing. Come on, Chang Chang, eat slowly, don't get stuck on the thorns. Zhao Qian took off her apron and waved her hand proudly. Su Ming and Su Meng were not polite and just ate with their heads down. Su Ming often eats fish from his own lake recently, whether it tastes good or not, but he is used to it anyway. However, Zhao Qian's fish cooking skills are much better than hers, and she eats them with gusto. However, Su Meng doesn't have any taste issues. He eats fish just like a meat grinder. The main purpose is to fill his stomach, even if it was raw, and I chewed it up in big bites and swallowed it in my stomach, not even the skin or bones were left. The 3 members of the Zhao family looked much more graceful when eating than the 2 members of the Su family. Zhao Yun casually picked up a piece of meat from the belly of the red gauze crucian carp with chopsticks. As soon as he put it into his mouth, his eyes lit up and he squealed. After eating the fish, he raised his head and smiled at Zhao Qian. It's very good. Your skills have been getting better recently. Don't be so sweet. It's not all like that. What's going on? Zhao Qian glared at Zhao Yun, then gave Chang Cheng a piece of tofu stewed with fish and said, eat more tofu. Good for your health. Chang Cheng probably didn't like eating tofu, so he lowered his head and poked the tofu twice with his chopsticks, and poured out a few small honeycomb-like holes in the tofu, then reluctantly shook his chopsticks. Hey, it's so fresh, Chang Cheng raised his head and said strangely with his eyes wide open. How come you followed your father and learned to be sweet? I used to cook for you every day, but I never heard you say it was delicious, Zhao Qian said with a smile. No, Chang Cheng shook her head vigorously, her 2 pigtails dangling, and said seriously, Mom, it's true. I'm not lying to you. Your cooking skills have been getting better recently, and the tofu is quite delicious. After finishing eating the small piece of tofu, he took another piece. Hey, you two, please say nice things in front of Xiao Su. Women all like to hear nice things. Even though she knew that Zhao Yun and Chang Cheng were probably trying to make her happy, Zhao Qian was still very happy and took a big spoon to scoop it up. A spoonful of fish soup and a small sip. After finishing the drink, Zhao Qian was stunned, looking at the milky white fish soup, and said to herself, that's wrong, why is it so fresh? I didn't add message. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 170. Zhao Yun's family pays great attention to health when cooking, and generally does not use chemicals like message. Moreover, fish itself is one of the fresher ingredients, so there is no need to add message. This is especially true for fish soup. What you drink is the original flavor of. Zhao Qian took a sip of the soup and realized that something was wrong. The fish soup was much more delicious than the previous ones, and it didn't seem to have the chemical smell caused by message and chicken essence. You said your skills are getting better, but you still don't believe it, Zhao Yun said, taking another small piece of fish head and taking a bite, nodding to Su Ming with satisfaction. Zhao Qian quickly put some fish on several plates, tasted each one, and then said with a sudden realization, "Oh, Lao Zhao, just flatter me on purpose, my craftsmanship is still the same as before, and the quality of these fish is particularly good. Xiao Su, aren't all of your fish raised in the lake? Why do they taste better than pure wild ones? And they have a very special smell. I can't tell what it is. It doesn't seem to be found in ordinary fish. Is it because they are wild? What additives are there?" After hearing what Zhao Qian said, Su Ming finally felt relieved. It turned out that the fish in Shuahun Lake, moistened by the water soaked in Tai Sui, had an extraordinary taste. Taste is actually a very subtle thing, and sometimes it has psychological effects. The reason why Zhao Yun and Zhao Qian were allowed to try it was to avoid their own preconceived subjective opinions. Zhao Yun and Zhao Qian's family did not know that the water source where these fish lived was different, and with Zhao Yun's strength, their family had all tasted it. Having met the masters and being recognized by them is enough to show that the fish in Shuahun Lake are indeed very good. There are no additives. If they were added, I wouldn't send them to your home. The water quality in our zoo is very good. You see, the finless porpoises and other things used to live in our Shuahun Lake. They are all fine. Su Ming, as he spoke, he patted Su Meng, who was engrossed in eating. This guy usually drinks lake water directly. Look, how strong he is. Oh, that's it? After Zhao Qian heard what Su Ming said, her last doubts were dispelled. She took a large piece of fish and gave it to Cheng Cheng. Eat more, today's fish is particularly delicious. Soon, all the fish on the table turned into bones. Cheng Cheng was still holding a long black fish spine in his mouth. Zhao Qian was clearing the dishes and chopsticks. Zhao Yun sat on the sofa and made 2 cups of tea. Then he took out an antique pipe, lit it, took 2 puffs, and said to Su Ming, "Since your fish is of excellent quality, there is nothing to say. I will call them now and ask them to order more of your fish." No, I didn't say that. I have a plan. Now it seems that it can be implemented." Su Ming whispered his plan to Zhao Yun. After Zhao Yun heard this, he was stunned for a moment, then pointed at Su Ming and smiled helplessly. "I have shares in those stores, you kid, you want to destroy my sign. So I have to tell you first." Su Ming was also smiling. "Smash my sign and tell me that you're a bad boy." Zhao Yun didn't object. After thinking about it, he nodded and said, "Okay, just use your discretion. Don't make it self-defeating. Those few, the owner of the store and I have a good relationship, and I still own shares. Do not worry. Most industries in the world make money by providing services and products to others and selling their own labor. However, there is a kind of industry where you don't have to do anything. You just eat and drink everywhere. After eating and drinking, you also give advice and give people advice. Find faults, and you don't have to pay the bill. This kind of person is called a gourmet, or a food critic. Food reviews are generally a side job. Gourmets themselves are famous chefs who earn a lot of money and do not need to rely on sponsorships from merchants. At the same time, they have very rich professional knowledge, their stance is relatively neutral, and their comments are more credible. Highly, The comments of famous gourmets can even greatly affect the sales of a store. However, in China, most of the so-called food critics are just charlatans. They are better at words than words, and they make a living by taking kickbacks from merchants. Last year, Yangchuan City launched a special food column, which introduced the food in Yangchuan City and surrounding areas once a week. At first, I hired a local so-called gourmet. This person's main identity is an internet influencer. He makes a living by promoting various foods through his fans on the internet. To put it nicely, he is a freelancer, and to put it worse, he is an unemployed vagrant. The comments given by this kind of person are really unreliable. In every episode of his program, he always says good things. The audience is not stupid, they can tell at a glance that he is a bastard, so this program has always been lukewarm. In the past few months, the program was almost unstoppable, so the TV station made great efforts and invited a foreigner from the provincial capital to be a guest. This guy named Sybil is a Frenchman. He has appeared in 2 issues of A Bite of China and is famous for his personalized comments. He himself is a certified Michelin 3-star chef and has several restaurants of his own in France. In the world of chefs, Michelin's 3-star chefs are basically the highest honor, and they are almost the best in the world in this industry. After SpecialAbilities came to the TV station to do several programs, due to her objective evaluation and professional attitude, she suddenly raised the ratings of this program on Yangchuan TV station a lot, although it was still not as good as several popular variety shows. But it can be regarded as a household name in Yangchuan City, and many people watch it with gusto in their spare time. The host of the Yangchuan food program has a good relationship with Nangong Yan, and they are considered good girlfriends in the workplace. Nangong Yan whispered something to her these days, and then Yangchuan Food was going to make a program about common freshwater fish. As we all know, freshwater fish is the most sold fish species in my country. Compared with other precious edible fish, the 4 major carps may be slightly inferior in taste, but because of their low price and easy breeding, they have become the most common food on the tables of the general public. In this episode, I will go to several restaurants that sell freshwater fish with Mr. Sabayer to find the most delicious freshwater fish. The first stop is the fishing paradise where the zoo used to have a meal. This can be regarded as the largest restaurant specializing in fish in Yangchuan City. The restaurant is still open, and the shooting location is in a semi-open private room in the corner. Although Sabayer came to taste the food, she still wore a neat little dress suit and combed her hair. If you don't know, you might think that this old man is going to attend a banquet. The waiter brought various fish dishes to the table one after another, and soon the table was full. Wow, it's worthy of being the largest fish restaurant in Yangchuan City. It looks very appetizing. Mr. Sabayer, please taste it, the host said on the side. Sabayer did not move his chopsticks, but looked at the fish in front of him and said in a somewhat stiff Chinese, "Oriental people cook dishes with attention to color, fragrance and taste." Just from the appearance, the level of the chef in this hotel is unquestionable. The color and fragrance are very good. Even without eating, I can guess that these fish will taste good. However, in my personal opinion, as a chef, turning ingredients into delicious food is only the second step, and the first step is to keenly select the best one among many ingredients that look similar.